You know who I admire? People who work in R&D for toilet paper. I was watching TV the other day and I saw a commercial for Charmin, and they've developed this new design for tearing toilet paper so that instead of just sort of tearing in a straight perforated line, there's like a little zigzag or like kind of an S pattern on the edge so that when it tears, it's less likely to tear in the middle of the sheet and it'll tear clean for a full sheet. And I was thinking, how long has toilet paper been a thing? How many decades has toilet paper been a mass-produced consumer product that we have all been throwing into our shopping carts without even thinking about it? It's just a thing that we need to get, and we get it, and that's it. And there are people working for these companies that manufacture toilet paper, and it's their job to make it better. After all these decades, there are still people working earnestly to improve toilet paper. And the level of commitment that takes, and the level of determination and hard work and ingenuity. Where does the idea even come from? Are you just sitting there staring at a roll of toilet paper going, how can I make this better? And then you come up with something and you get to be the person that goes into your boss's office and say, guess what, boss? I figured out a new twist on toilet paper. That's a level of professionalism and creativity and hard work and expertise that I just can't help but admire. You know who else I admire? Grocery store sushi chefs. That's something else I was thinking about the other day. I was actually at the grocery store. I didn't happen to need toilet paper that time, but I was getting a few other things. And my grocery store has in the sort of the meat department and the deli department back there in the back of the store, they have an on-staff sushi chef that makes sushi, like just, that they package and put out for sale in the little cooler, but you can also get it made to order. You can order fresh made sushi from the grocery store sushi chef. And that's really cool if you like sushi and you're like, pushing your shopping cart around and you're checking off items from your list. And you know what would be good for lunch? Sushi. And there you go, right? Really cool. But perhaps not super cool for that sushi chef, because you have to imagine that if you have gone through the necessary training to become a professional sushi chef, and I don't know what that entails, but I imagine you have to attain some level of qualification before you can just start sending out resumes, and you've done that, and you are now qualified to be a sushi chef and get paid for it and make sushi for people. And you send out your resume and no restaurants call you back, but you do get that job at the grocery store. And I'm sure you're happy to have it. And hopefully, I don't know how much a sushi chef makes at a grocery store, but hopefully it's enough to pay the bills and you can, at least squeak by earning a living or part of a living. Probably have to have a roommate or something, depending on where you live, but it's better than nothing. And you get to make sushi as your job. That's what you went to school for. That's what you've trained for. That's what you want to do. That's your skill. That's your trade. And you get to do it. You get to make use of your skill and your expertise to earn a living and to provide a service and a product that people want. And even though it might not be the most glamorous form of that job, you take it and you do it to the best of your ability because you are a proud professional sushi chef and that is what you do. And I admire that as well. I admire people who have expertise in things. I admire people who have skills in things, especially when they have skills that I don't possess, which is most skills. Because really, the only skill I have, the only trade that I have, the only thing I have any degree of actual expertise in is this here. I'm a pretty good writer, although I didn't actually write this that you're watching now, which you can probably tell this is coming off the top of my head. But for many of my YouTube videos, most of the better ones, I would say, they are written ahead of time. I script them. So I like to think of myself as a decent writer. And then I need to set up the lights, and I need to set up the backdrop, and I need to set up the camera. Then I need to edit it, and I need to fix the audio. And there's a certain degree of skill involved in making a decent YouTube video and in doing a good enough job at it that you can earn a living at it. So I have to be good at the presentation, talking to the camera, talking to you folks. I have to be good at editing it and preparing it and finishing it. So there's a certain degree of skill involved there, but I don't know. It's not like being a really good singer or being someone who plays a musical instrument with a high level of proficiency, or someone who has like a technical trade. Someone who's a carpenter or an electrician or a mechanic. My brother is an auto mechanic, and I have just boundless admiration for him. He went and he got educated and he learned a skill, a trade that is always going to furnish him a living, and is technically, like, he might as well be a quantum physicist as far as I'm concerned. Like, I have no clue how anything in my truck works. I can put gas in it, and I can, if the oil light comes on, I can put more oil in until I have a chance to go get the oil changed, right? That's really, and the windshield wipers. I can put on new windshield wipers and put air in the tires. But we're rapidly approaching the limit of my skills involving automobiles, right? But my brother is a professional auto mechanic and has been for a very long time. And it's just right over my head. He has expertise that I don't have, that I would never have, that I probably am incapable of having just due to the way my brain works. Like, I'm an English student from my feet to the top of my head. I'm terrible at math. I'm terrible at technical stuff. I'm an English student. I know how to sound like I know what I'm talking about. I may have no idea what I'm talking about at all, but I can make you think that I know what I'm talking about. So I admire expertise when I see it in others, and I'm grateful for it because expertise is important. It's important in our society for things to work the way they need to work. It's important that we have people who are trained, people that have experience, people that have knowledge, people that know how to do stuff that needs to get done. We need those people, and we need that skill and craft and expertise. We couldn't have the civilization that we do, or any civilization, without those people. And that's why it's so frustrating to see what we are expected to put up with this brand new Trump administration. Because look at how these people have thumbed their noses at the very idea of expertise. Look at the person that has just officially been confirmed as the new Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth. And let's leave aside his multitude of character flaws and his multitude of allegations of sexual harassment and sexual assault. Let's leave aside the tattoos the dude has that, I don't know, I'm not an expert, but they sure look like Nazi tattoos to me. Yeah, let's leave all that aside. There are so many reasons why this guy should not be Secretary of Defense, but one of the big ones is that he has no relevant expertise and no relevant experience. Yes, he served in the military, but so did lots of people. That doesn't necessarily qualify you to be the Secretary of Defense. My father was in the Navy. My father actually did 2 tours in the Navy. He was in the Navy for 4 years. He got out. He came back to civilian life. I was born. And I'm sure completely coincidentally, a couple years after that, Dad said, you know what, I would like actually to go back in the Navy. And he went back in for another tour, right? And he served with a certain amount of distinction. He wasn't an officer. He didn't rise to any kind of senior post. He was, an enlisted person. There was one time where he was selected Sailor of the Month on his ship. And, that's pretty cool, right? So he's very proud of his service in the Navy, as I am proud of him for having done it. And his dad, my pap, he also was in the Navy when he was younger, right? And I love them both and I admire them both. I don't think either one of them should be the Secretary of Defense. Of course, Pap is dead, so that would tend to disqualify him, but my dad is happily still very much alive and in pretty good shape. I don't think he should be Secretary of Defense. He was in the Navy, so I guess that's better than not, but that you should have more, we should require more than that. Pete Hegseth was a guy in the Army, and good for him. But you look at the record of most people who have served as Secretary of Defense, generals, admirals, high-ranking officers, people who have commanded troops, people who have strategized, people who have managed large departments within the military, people who have had positions at the Pentagon in the past, like people who have relevant experience and expertise that suggests that apart from whatever ideological commonalities they might have with the president who appoints them, that they are capable of doing the job. Where is that with Hegseth? I don't see it. Where is that with RFK Jr.? Where is that with Kash Patel? See, these people get these nominations and will almost certainly get these positions, get confirmed to these appointments to head these very important federal agencies, not because they have any expertise that qualifies them, but because they will do what President Donald Trump tells them to do, because they are ideologically aligned with him and they will do what he wants. And that is literally all he cares about. And what really pisses me off is that it's not only Donald Trump and it's not only people in his department, in his administration. There's a major engine of the right, of right-wing ideology, a lot of the resentment that fuels the present form of right-wing conservative ideology is based on resentment against the quote-unquote elites. And when they say elite, they don't mean rich people, because, boy, there's more rich people in the Trump administration than there have been in any other past presidential administration by far. I mean, you want to talk about oligarchy, you want to talk about being ruled by billionaires, you want to talk about the ruling class. This is it, right? So they're not talking about elites in terms of economic elites. They're talking about smart people. When they say we're going to take back the country from the elites, they're talking about smart people. They're talking about people that have expertise. They're talking about people that know what they're doing. Boy, Republicans and conservatives really, really, really have a grudge against people who know what they're doing. People who have education and who are well-read and who are fluent in their subjects and who have some faint idea what the fuck they're doing. Trump and his people, they have no use for those people at all, unless they're one of the relatively small number of people who agree with Trump. Then you're welcome. Then you can come aboard, as long as you agree with Trump. You could be the most qualified person in the world, technically, for whatever job we're talking about. But if you don't agree with Donald Trump, you're not getting that job. He will give it to some rando from one of his rallies. He will give it to someone that he saw on Fox News and liked the sound of, before he will give it to an actually qualified person that he thinks might not just blindly do whatever he tells them to do. This is the death of expertise. This is what people mean when they talk about that, when they refer to that. And it's not a natural death. It's being murdered. Donald Trump and his allies are trying to strangle expertise. They're trying to remove it from government, from public life as much as they can, because they are threatened by it. Because the more experience you have, and the smarter you are, and the more skilled you become, and the more competent you become in whatever your chosen field is, the more obvious it will be to you how incompetent and unskilled and unqualified Donald Trump and all of his people are. They talk about meritocracy, but what they mean is us being able to do what we want to do and us being in charge. That's meritocracy, not the people who are most qualified get to run the show, because clearly we are not in that place. Clearly, I mean, America has never really been a meritocracy, but it has rarely been further from meritocracy than right now in terms of who's in charge of the federal government. That's what the destruction of DEI is about, in part. I mean, it's mostly about racism, but it's also about taking away opportunities for qualified people of color, because DEI, affirmative action, whatever you want to call it, it's framed by racist white people as an effort to elevate unqualified people of color to jobs they don't deserve. What it actually is intended to do is to make sure that qualified people of color get the same opportunities as qualified white people. It's about leveling the playing field. It's not about bringing in people who aren't qualified. But that's not the story that you're told by people who are against it, who are, again, I just want to repeat, are racists. People who are against DEI, people who are against affirmative action, people who are against efforts to level the playing field for people of marginalized groups, they're racists or homophobes or transphobes or misogynists or whatever form of it that they're against. It comes from bigotry, but it also comes from a mistrust and a desire to be rid of expertise. And it also comes from intellectual, and I think in many cases physical, laziness. It takes a lot of hard work. You have any idea how much work it takes to learn how to be a really good sushi chef? Like, even to be good enough to get the job at the grocery store, that takes a lot of work. But Trump and his supporters, that seems to be how they view everything. I should be able to just do it. If I have an idea that I think will work, I should be able to just do it. And if anybody knows better than me and tries to tell me I shouldn't do it because I'm wrong about something, they're the one with the problem, not me. I should just be allowed to do the thing I want to do. What gives them the right? Who do they think they are? How much of present-day right-wing ideology and thought is just from that single impulse that I just said? You think you're better than me? Imagine if all of us thought that. Imagine if you went to the grocery store to get your sushi and you watched the chef preparing it expertly. And instead of being impressed and grateful and saying, "Thank you so much," you said, "Who are you trying to impress? Cutting that fish like that. What? I could do that. You think you're special? Well, because you can make sushi like that, you think you're better than me?" If you go to a concert and you see someone playing an instrument and singing and making beautiful music, and instead of being in awe of their artistry and entertained by their show, you instead grow bitter and you say, "Who do they think?" Well, what, because you can play the guitar, because you can play the drums, because you can sing on key, you think you're better than me? You're not better than me. What kind of attitude is this, to walk through life looking at everybody who can do things you can't? Everybody who has put in time that you haven't put in to get good at something, to look at them and say, who do they think they are? Who are they trying to impress? But that is so much of what animates this movement, what animates this Trump administration. Resentment of expertise, bitterness toward people who know more and have done more and seen more and have superior skill, resentment toward those people. This is the point where if I had scripted this ahead of time, I would bring everything full circle and you'd be there watching it going, "Oh, I like the way he tied it all together." I didn't write it ahead of time. I'm just babbling off the top of my head to the camera, so you're not going to get that. I will say this, though. I'm grateful for the expertise of others. I do occasionally feel an instinctive pang of jealousy or resentment when I see someone who's really, really good at something that I'm not good at, especially if it's something that I might occasionally daydream about wanting to do. I get it. I get where that comes from, but I push back against it. because I don't want to be that person. I don't want to go through life resenting people who can do things that I can't do, because what a terrible world it would be if nobody could do anything that I can't do, or if nobody was any better at stuff than I am, because I'm not that good at very many things. And neither are you, probably, no offense, but that's just the way it is. Some of us are really good at some things, and some of us have no idea how to do things. But as a group, as a society, as a species, we fill in each other's gaps. We can't do everything as individuals, but amongst all 9 billion of us, we've pretty much got it covered. And we can benefit from each other's knowledge and skills and experiences and expertise. And that's what allows society to grow and evolve and progress and prosper. It's a good thing. Trump and his cronies and his supporters, they look at it like it's some kind of contest. Like if that scientist knows more than that black sheep of the Kennedy family, that somehow that scientist has got one over on them, and the scientist needs to be crushed. The doctor needs to be crushed so that the guy on our team can be lifted up because we have to win. Like, that's not the way to look at it. That's such a toxic, unhealthy, dangerous way to look at it. Take advantage of the expertise. Take advantage of the skill. Take advantage of the knowledge so that we can all benefit from it, whether we share it or not. That's how this can work. That's how this does work. When it works, what a terrible world it would be without that. If everybody had the same skill level that I have, if nobody was any better at shit than I am, and nobody could do stuff that I can't do, think of all the things we would miss. Think of how different and how much darker and flatter and blander and less interesting the world would be. No music. No fixing the cars. No building the cars. No cars. I can't build a car. I wouldn't know where to start. No electricity. No sushi at the grocery store or elsewhere. And only the most primitive toilet paper.